We are now having an African samurai author known as Thomas Lockley denying the fact that he has collaborated in any way, shape, or form with Ubisoft when it comes to their new game Assassin's Creed Shadows. And this has all come to the fact that the amount of controversy that this game is getting because of Yasuke not having a substantial role in history when it comes to him being the main protagonist within this game. And you also have to remember that Thomas Lockley, he does have ulterior motives when it comes to this. He has books. He wants his sales to increase. So when it comes to that, you want to have a lot of, I guess, speculation, backlash, or eyes on the product when it comes to this new game. Because in so doing that, you're going to also get a lot more sales for your book, which is, again, a monetary gain. African samurai author Thomas Lockley lies about collaborating with Ubisoft on Assassin's Creed Shadows amid Yasuke controversy. Thomas Lockley, the author of African Samurai, the true story of Yasuke, a legendary black warrior in feudal Japan, lied about collaborating with Ubisoft on Assassin's Creed Shadows amid the ongoing controversy surrounding the character of Yasuke. In an interview on the Lance E. Lee podcast from Tokyo on YouTube, Lockley stated, "I don't know whether the game Assassin's Creed should have him as the main character or should have somebody else as a main character. Quite frankly, I don't care." And when it comes to these historians, you need to care about it because you don't want to manipulate history in your own image. You want to dictate it as how it should be. And when it comes to these Assassin's Creed games, we know that they're fictional, that take place, I guess, in real events, but the main characters that you play as are fictional. Until now, this is the first time we've ever seen a real person in the real world that lived once become the main protagonist. And when you're doing that, you need to do as much research as possible on that character that you decided to make the main character of your game. Because if that doesn't happen, you're going to get situations like this in which it's getting blown out the water, and rightfully so, because Yasuke had very little part to do with the history of feudal Japan. It's not like he unified Japan. He didn't do nothing of that stature. It continues on. Lee then asks him, "But have you nothing to do with it anyway?" Lockley replies, "Nothing to do with it." Lee then asks, "You see no royalties or anything?" Lockley responded, No, it was nothing to do. Through my book, it's starting to sell well again, which is nice. That's nice. And there it is. That is the monetary gain that I was talking about earlier. He then added, "But don't attack Yasuke as a man. Let's remember this man for who he was and the great things that he did." And that's where the interview concludes that took place recently, and it continues on right here. On his Facebook account, he also wrote, "Thank you for your support over the years due to the hate mail connected with Assassin's Creed game, with which I have nothing to do and have no intention of playing, but many people seem to think I am responsible for. I will be freezing this account, I hope not forever, but who knows." However, Lockley did indeed collaborate with Ubisoft for an episode of their Echoes of History podcast titled Yasuke, the First African Samurai Podcast. The description of the episode states Yasuke is one of the most captivating and yet mysterious figures within Japanese history. In 1581, at the height of the Civil War, he crossed paths with the country's most powerful warlord, Oda Nobunaga. Their meeting bound the two men together and set Yasuke on a path to becoming the first known samurai of African descent in Japan. Delving into the history behind one of the two main characters in the latest Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Matt Lewis and Thomas Lockley examined the few surviving historical sources to reveal what we know about Yasuke, Japan's first African samurai, it adds. The description concludes with making it clear that it's produced by Ubisoft. Echoes of History is a Ubisoft podcast brought to you by History Hit. So he did have something to do with Ubisoft, obviously, but again, was it for monetary gain? Did they absolutely pay him to do this? I don't know. I think it's probably just some sort of exposure so he can get his name out there and for it to be known so he can get more book sales and for him to gain some sort of monetary value that way. Podcast host Matt Lewis also introduces the episode saying, "In case you haven't had the chance to see it yet, the world premiere trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadow was released and you can see it takes place in feudal Japan. This is a time famous for its samurai and ninjas, an era rich in history, culture, and stories. For the next few episodes in this series, we'll be exploring this fascinating period in history. So far, we've traveled back in time to the Sengoku period sowed the seeds for the unification of Japan and culture collider with the arrival of Portuguese missionaries on Japanese shores. He continued, today we are tracing the story of a key figure in this area of upheaval, Japan's first black samurai Yasuke as one of the main two characters in Assassin's Creed Shadows. You'll get to see what the world of feudal Japan through the eyes of the legendary African samurai. But how and when did Yasuke end up in Japan? What was his journey to becoming Japan's first black samurai? What can his story tell us about life in the Sengoku Japan period? To find out more about this notorious and yet mysterious figure from Japanese history, I'm joined by Thomas Lockley, Associate Professor at Nihon University in Tokyo and author of African Samurai, The True Story of Yasuke. And Lockley would get criticized by a notorious tutor in Japan known as Naoto, his name being, and this is what it says about that. Not only is Lockley lying about collaborating with Ubisoft, but this appears to be a pattern of behavior, as noted by Japanese tutor Naoto, who has done significant research into Lockley's claims regarding Yasuke and how it influenced Assassin's Creed Shadows. Following an exhaustive breakdown of an interview Lockley gave with the Japan Times regarding Yasuke, Naoto concludes, I used to think that he was just a presumptuous speculative researcher. However, what I understand from his interview in the Japan Times is that he is deliberately lying. He who distorts history for his political beliefs is not qualified to be a historian. Naoto added, without his book, the latest Assassin's Creed game would have featured a Japanese ninja as the protagonist. Even if Yasuke could act as a mediator between the Jesuits and Nobunaga, that was not a role significant enough to make him the protagonist. At most, he would have been an NPC. Once again, I strongly feel that this research of his has changed the content of the game set in Japan and Japanese history. And if you even try to debate people on whether Yasuke was a samurai or not, and him being represented in a game that takes place in a Japanese setting, you're going to be called a racist. There have been articles written about it, as well as a bunch of Reddits that put the blame on the backlash on people that are apparently racist, even though the people of Japan are also criticizing this whole situation, and even Japanese historians that take pride in their history and culture. It's so crazy to me that Ubisoft decided to go down this route with doing little to no research on the figure of Yasuke, and even if they did do their research, there isn't that many documents out there that mention Yasuke, or if they do, it is very short and not that well detailed. And with all that in mind, I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.